Every fisherman knows the hope that comes with first light. There's a quiet magic in those early hours when the world is still wrapped in darkness and the only sound is the gentle lapping of water against the boat. It's a time when anything feels possible, when dreams seem just within reach. You wake up in the dark, the world still and silent. The air is crisp, and the promise of a new day hangs heavy in the silence. You move quietly, careful not to disturb the peace. As if the lake itself is holding its breath. The gear is heavy in your hands, and your breath hangs in the air. Each step toward the water feels like a ritual, a small act of faith that today might be different. There's promise in every ripple, every cast. The surface of the lake glimmers with hope, each cast a question thrown into the unknown. But for me, hope had become a tired routine. The excitement of possibility faded, replaced by the weight of too many empty mornings. I had spent years chasing that one perfect catch. Each outing was another chance, another shot at redemption, but the prize always slipped away. My tackle box filled with the latest lures, each one promising success. I bought into every new trick hoping it would be the answer. My wallet emptied by every next big thing. The cost of hope added up, but I kept spending, convinced that the next lure, the next bait, would finally bring me what I was searching for. The mornings stretched into months, then years. Seasons changed, but my luck never did. I watched the world move on while I stayed, stubbornly casting into the same waters. The only thing I reeled in was disappointment. Each empty line was a reminder of dreams unfulfilled, of effort unrewarded. The lake was always beautiful, but beauty can't fill the cooler. No matter how breathtaking the sunrise, it never made up for the emptiness inside. I watched the sunrise again and again, waiting for luck to turn. Each new day brought a flicker of hope, but the outcome was always the same. My hands were cracked from cold water and frustration. The ache in my fingers matched the ache in my heart, both worn down by years of trying. I started to ask, was fishing meant for someone else? Doubt crept in, whispering that maybe I was chasing a dream that was never mine to catch. Each trip ended the same way. Wet boots, empty hands, and another story I couldn't bring myself to tell. The silence on the drive home was heavier than any fish I'd ever hoped to land. I was ready to give up, until a stranger in a parking lot changed everything. Sometimes, hope comes from the most unexpected places, just when you think you've run out of chances. It's hard to watch friends and family bring home the big ones, their arms stretched wide with pride, their faces glowing with excitement. Each photo, each story, seemed to highlight just how much I was missing out. Their smiles are wide, their nets heavy, and their laughter rings out across the water. It's as if every cast they make is rewarded, every trip a celebration. The boat is full of laughter and stories, tales of the one that got away and the ones that didn't. The camaraderie is infectious, and the joy is unmistakable. Mine was quiet and empty. The silence felt heavier with every passing hour, broken only by the occasional splash or the distant sound of others' cheers. Every group photo reminded me of what I was missing. I tried everything, hoping to finally be part of those memories instead of just watching from the sidelines. Expensive reels, new lines, lures that promised miracles. I spent hours researching, convinced that the right gear would change my luck. Each time I thought, this will be it. This is the trip where everything turns around, where I finally get my moment. But each time, it wasn't. The anticipation faded into disappointment, and the cycle started all over again. I'd watch others pull fish from the same spot I just left, wondering what I was doing wrong, questioning every decision I made. You're just unlucky, they'd say, trying to make me feel better. But their words felt hollow, unable to fill the growing gap inside. But that didn't make it hurt less. The sting of falling behind, of always being the one with empty hands, cut deeper than I cared to admit. The feeling of being left behind can eat at you. It seeps in slowly, turning excitement into dread, hope into hesitation. I started to dread fishing trips. What once was a source of joy became a reminder of my failures, a test I kept failing. I'd pack up early, blaming the weather or bad timing, making excuses to hide my frustration and disappointment. I thought about selling my gear. Maybe it was time to let go. To accept that fishing just wasn't meant for me. Maybe fishing just wasn't for me. The thought lingered, heavy and persistent, as I questioned if I should keep trying. It all came to a head one morning as I loaded my car, the sky barely lit, my heart heavy with doubt and resignation. I told myself, this is the last time. If nothing changes, I'll walk away for good. Little did I know, the answer was waiting for me in the parking lot. Sometimes, hope shows up when you least expect it, just as you're about to give up. It was just another morning, the kind that slips quietly into memory, unnoticed and unremarkable. Another silent drive to the lake, the world still wrapped in a soft blue haze, the only sound the hum of my engine and the distant call of waking birds. I sat in my car, staring at my battered tackle box, its corners dented from years of use, and wondered if I'd even bother baiting a hook today. The excitement I once felt for these early mornings had faded, replaced by a quiet doubt. That is when I noticed an older man, his truck pulling in and parking right beside mine, as if by fate or some unspoken understanding between fishermen. He looked like he belonged to the water, as if he'd been coming here for decades, part of the landscape itself. His clothes were worn, faded by sun and rain, his boots caked with mud from countless mornings just like this one. He nodded to me, a silent greeting, as he pulled out a tiny jar and started rubbing something onto his lures with practiced hands, each movement deliberate and sure. Curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself asking, "What's that stuff?" My voice sounded small in the quiet morning air. He smiled, the kind of smile that comes from years of secrets and quiet victories, a smile that hinted at stories untold. "Petroleum jelly," he said, holding up the familiar $2.99 tub, as if revealing a magician's trick. "Old trick. Works better than half the stuff in that store," he explained, gesturing toward the distant bait shop with a knowing wink. I laughed, thinking he was joking, but his eyes told me he was completely serious. There was wisdom there, earned on long, quiet mornings just like this one. He told me stories of trophy fish, of battles won and lost, of mornings when nothing seemed to bite until he tried this simple trick. He showed me photos of big catches, and described slow mornings turned around by this humble hack, his voice full of pride and nostalgia. "Give it a try," he said, pressing the little jar into my hand, his gesture both generous and encouraging. My pride wanted to say no, to stick to what I knew, but something in his confidence made me pause. But my desperation, that quiet hope for a better morning, said yes. And so, with a hesitant smile, I accepted the jar, not knowing that this chance encounter would change everything about the way I fished. Petroleum jelly. Something you'd expect in a medicine cabinet, not a tackle box. But as the old man explained, this was a trick passed down from angler to angler. Long before fancy sprays and attractants, there was this. He explained how a thin coating on the lure did three things. First, it masked unwanted scents from your hands or packaging. Second, it made the lure slip through the water more smoothly. Third, it helped hold natural scents if you wanted to add them. This trick wasn't new. It was just forgotten in the rush to buy new gear. The wisdom was simple. Fish use their senses to decide what's food and what's not. If your lure smells wrong, they'll ignore it, even if it looks perfect. That morning, I tried it. The result? My first real catch in months. I felt the old excitement return. Suddenly, fishing was fun again. Fish don't see the world like we do. Underwater, their world is a blur of shapes, movements, and, most importantly, scents. Their sense of smell is thousands of times more sensitive than ours. What we can't smell, they notice right away. When we touch a lure, we leave behind traces: soap, sunscreen, gasoline. Even the plastic from the packaging can send warning signals. Most factory-fresh lures carry a chemical scent that fish avoid. That's why some days the fish seem to ignore everything. Petroleum jelly acts as a barrier. It seals in the good smells and blocks out the bad. It also gives the lure a subtle shine, making it look more natural in the water. Some anglers add scents like anise or garlic, but even plain jelly makes a difference. Understanding fish behavior isn't magic, it's science. The more you know, the less you need to rely on luck. Using the jelly is simple. First, open the jar and scoop out a small amount with your finger. Rub it between your fingers to warm it up. Then, gently coat the lure. Spoons, soft plastics, hard baits, even hooks. Don't overdo it. A thin layer is enough. For soft plastics, the jelly adds flexibility and keeps them from drying out. For hard baits, it creates a slippery surface that glides through the water better. On hooks, it helps bait slide on and stay fresh longer. Reapply after every few casts, especially in fast-moving or cold water. If you want, mix in a drop of fish oil or a dash of garlic powder for extra scent, but the plain stuff works wonders on its own. Try it on your favorite lure the next time you head out. You'll be surprised how quickly you see results. Why don't we hear about this trick more often? The answer is simple: money. The fishing industry thrives on selling new gear, scents, and gadgets. There's little profit in a $2.99 tub that lasts a whole year. Big brands, well, they want you buying the latest lures and sprays. They spend millions on marketing, promising secret formulas. But the truth is, a lot of old-school tricks work just as well, sometimes even better. Petroleum jelly is one of them. That's why these tips travel quietly, passed from angler to angler at the water's edge. It's not flashy or expensive, but for those in the know, it's a real game changer. Learning these secrets is kind of like finding a hidden map. It's about outsmarting the system and keeping the spirit of fishing alive. Once you've mastered the basic trick, you can get creative. Mix a few drops of anise oil, shrimp juice, or garlic extract into the jelly. Stir it well, and you've got a homemade attractant that rivals anything in the store. In cold water, the jelly helps keep scent stuck to the lure longer. In warm water, it spreads faster, creating a bigger scent trail. You can experiment with different mixes for different species. Try sardine oil for catfish or crayfish scent for bass. The possibilities are pretty much endless. And, because you're in control, you know exactly what's going into your bait. No more mystery ingredients or chemicals you can't pronounce. This hack doesn't just save money, it makes you a smarter, more adaptable angler, ready for every season. Some anglers worry about using enhancements. Is it cheating? Most tournaments have clear rules about scents and additives. Petroleum jelly is usually allowed because it's not a chemical attractant on its own, but you should always double-check your tournament guidelines. It's important to fish responsibly. Don't dump excess jelly in the water and use only small amounts. The goal is to outsmart the fish, not harm the environment. Share the trick, but respect the rules of the sport. Fishing is about skill, patience, and respect for nature and for other anglers. The jelly trick is a tool, not a shortcut. That $2.99 hack changed more than my luck. I saw unkind. It changed my outlook. Suddenly, I wasn't chasing the latest gadget. I was focused on understanding the fish and the water. My confidence grew with every catch. Fishing became fun again, not a test of my wallet or my pride. I started sharing the trick with friends and family. Their excitement reminded me of why we fish in the first place. It's about learning, sharing, and celebrating the little wins. So, if you're struggling, don't give up. Try the old tricks, trust your instincts, and share what you learn. Sometimes, the simplest solution is the one no one talks about. And in fishing, that's often the difference between empty hands and a story worth telling.